This is the No More Wasted Days podcast, and we're your hosts, Sarah Kaufman Bradstreet
and Heather PG. Grab your favorite NA drink and listen as we share vulnerable stories so you never feel alone on your alcohol-free journey.
And gain insights from us as we break down our most used tips and strategies that have kept us alcohol-free.
It's time to break free from wasting any more of your days to the drinking, blackout, hangover cycle.
Welcome to another episode of the No More Wasted Days podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sarah.
And I'm Heather.
All right. Heather is going to talk to us about a really cool topic called emotional sobriety. And I told Heather it's kind of something where I know what it is. Like I know what the idea of it is, but I don't know a lot about it, if that makes sense. So I am super stoked for Heather to take it away and tell us all about it.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm excited too. It's one of my favorite topics. And it's something that I got really interested in after my first year of being alcohol-free. Year 2 was solely dedicated to emotional sobriety. I had started researching it maybe the first 6 months. And I was like, I'm just going to make it 1 year without drinking. And then I'm going to explore this further. So I did a lot of research to understand it. So I love to research things and I love to define things. So what is emotional sobriety? The concept of emotional sobriety was first introduced by Alcoholics Anonymous. Bill W., the co-founder in the 1950s, believed that physical sobriety was only the first step in recovery and that emotional sobriety was necessary for long-term success. I have only heard of the term emotional sobriety typically in the context of AA. I did not do AA, so I went on my own emotional sobriety journey, and that's what we're going to share with y'all today.
Yeah, see, I even had no idea that it was something from AA, and it's like, and I totally, what you just said is exactly what I thought it would be, and I think that it's a huge misconception that people that quit without AA don't tackle this. Because it's something that trolls on the internet will say to me from time to time, oh, you're just a dry drunk. And I'm like, first of all, I hate that term. I hate that term so much. I think I don't know. I don't want to be called a drunk anyway, but to then be called like a drunk that only quit drinking and hasn't done any of the work, I'm like, that's a lot to assume of someone that you don't know. And if you watch all of my content, I do work on that stuff a lot. And it's something that I talk to people about.
Right. Emotional sobriety for me is the work.
Yes.
And if y'all want to hear more about my story, you can go back to Heather's 3-year alcohol-free. But I share that like quitting drinking for me was like 10%. And the 90% was learning to deal with emotions, life, stress, etc.
Yeah.
So it's really important because it can create sustainable alcohol-free life. And I think it is key to long-term recovery. Without it, the risk of drinking again increases because things are unaddressed. Your emotional issues can lead to going back to drinking again because we don't know how to deal with our emotions because we have drank a lot and we've reached for substances to numb things, enhance things. A lot of people think emotions are all bad. They're not. They're good too. And when we go to celebrate something and we organically reach for champagne, we're not experiencing happiness on the level that we could be because we're looking to enhance it when actually it doesn't do that, right?
Yeah.
We think it does. Alcohol is a tricky little hussy.
Right? Whenever you say hussy, I think of this cartoon that I used to watch, the Cinderella cartoon, and the stepmom would call Cinderella a hussy the whole time. And I remember being like, isn't that a terrible word, Mom? So anyway, sidebar.
No, my daughter watches Cinderella, so maybe that's why hussy comes to the top of my mind because it's not a word that I use frequently.
Maybe. Oh, who knows? Total tangent right there.
I love it. I'm glad you said it because hussy is not a word I use often. So there,
No,
now we
I
know.
think I've heard you say it now twice, and I'm always like, that's such an interesting word.
Right. So when we think about emotional sobriety and why it's important, it will help your relationships.
Yeah.
10 toes down because we learn how to handle our emotions in a healthy way. and we're not communicating, number one, intoxicated. Number
Hmm.
two, if you do the work, you learn how to communicate more effectively, and you have healthier connections. And I know I work with folks one-on-one about different ways to communicate, and we talk about it in the Daymakers community a lot in the thread. Like, I'm ahead of seeing this challenging family member, like any tips on verbiage or how to approach this in a healthy way without alcohol.
I think too, how you're saying it's the sustainable recovery piece, it's the improving relationships piece. I keep thinking of that one quote that's out there that the idea isn't to have a life that you have to drink to escape from, but instead have a life that you love so much you don't want to escape it. And I think that's the key. And there is something to taking a 30-day break from alcohol to get yourself started, or
Yeah.
even for some people as a reset, however you want to do that. But if you really want to make it a long term thing, you have to do all of this work. And it is so worth it.
Yeah. And it can be slow. It's not a race. We're not good at getting an award, but the return on investment is unreal. So, speaking of that, like important for personal growth.
This is my favorite part.
Me too. The more you know your needs, desires, goals, you have a more fulfilling life.
Yeah.
So, if y'all are wondering how to do this,
I
here's
was
some.
just going to say, tell us how to do it, Heather.
Well, here's some simple, tangible things. And if y'all are enjoying this, let us know, because so we can make this like maybe a little mini series.
Oh, that'd be super cool.
Yeah. So you want to tune into yourself and become more self-aware. And this can be terrifying, and it's worth it. And you want to be mindful. And that simply means just staying present and being engaged in your current experience. It doesn't have to be like this complicated, nuanced thing. You can channel your five senses and be where you are now.
That's exactly what I was going to say too. The 5 sense check is, I think, the most basic way for us to actually be present. I think when people say practice mindfulness, be present, we're so like, how do you even do that? Like, that's how
Right.
I was. I was very much like, I don't understand how to be present. I'm here, I'm showing up.
Mm-hmm.
But when somebody said stop and say, I see this, I smell this, I hear this, I can touch this, the moment somebody said that, I was like, that's what it is. It's taking that. I mean, it takes 30 seconds, 10 seconds. It takes no
Mm-hmm.
time to do a presence check.
Yeah. And if you want to take it a little further, you can do meditation. We just did a really awesome episode on that 2 or 3 episodes ago. So check that out. Deep breathing, simple. In 7, hold 4, out 8.
Mm-hmm.
And taking a walk. And that can help increase your self awareness and emotional regulation. And I just want to say something. It used to piss me off when I was on my cancer journey and in the battle when people would be like, just take a walk. Now, I'm not trying to minimize anybody's current experience, but if you just move a muscle, like get up and go get some water, go up and down the steps, start there. I don't mean just gingerly go on a walk and your life is going to change, but just move a muscle.
Yeah. I think that's so funny that you mention it because that's how we feel about so many things. When we're really stuck in the shit, we're sitting there and people are like, have you tried meditation? And you're like,
Right.
oh my God, shut up.
Hmm. Yeah.
And the thing is, now I actually have like an inner voice that is that person saying, well, maybe you need to go for a walk. And I was like, no, not right now. Like I will have an inner dialogue with the healthier version of me, the healthier mindset version of me when I am really stuck in it. And like Heather said, you don't have to do this huge thing. When people say take a walk, it's not, okay, go on a 3-mile journey. No, it's just start the process sometimes. And especially when you're early on in your alcohol free journey, because you're learning how to deal with all this. And the one thing with meditation that I was going to add is people are always like, oh, I have a million thoughts. Well, that's good. Get in there and listen to them. It's okay. And you can listen to them and go, wow, this is a reoccurring thought for me. This must be on my brain. Or else you just think this is a priority for me. Wow, look, I'm always kind of considering this person or this thing. So when you are saying I've got a million thoughts, that's okay. Most of us do. Like,
Yeah.
I love when people say that too, like, oh, I'm so special. I have a million thoughts. I can't do this. No, we
Yeah.
all have it.
Yeah. There's a couple episodes on the inner critic, or the episode on the inner critic, that tells us exactly how many thoughts we have. So,
So
yeah,
many.
so many. And then once we are becoming more self aware and more mindful, that creates better, healthier coping mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
And that can go along with exercise, moving your body in a way that feels good for you and intentional for you.
Yeah.
And you could even do something really simple if you're like, here they go about exercising or walking again. If you like in your mind count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then just get up and do the thing.
Yep.
Whether it's brush your teeth, get more water, just move a muscle.
Yes.
It will create endorphins and give you some serotonin that your body is incredibly depleted from drinking a lot.
And when you exercise too, it's another moment where you're thinking, like, and it's more of a focused, you're very focused on the movement, and then your
Hmm.
brain gets to kind of loosely free flow for you. And I
Yeah.
was going to mention too, if people are curious about that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 that Heather talked about, there's a whole book on it by Mel Robbins. It was a game changer for me for not hitting the snooze button. So,
Oh, yeah.
but she even uses it with if you're trying to quit drinking. So if you're having a thought about alcohol, then say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go find something else to do. Like stop thinking about that thing. So I love that you used it for exercise because I feel like that's me every time I exercise and I'm pretty regular with it, but I'm still like, I don't want to do it. It's like, just
Right.
do the thing.
I'm glad you brought that up about Mel Robbins. I heard about the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 during the pandemic, or the very beginning of it. And then you'll always hear me and Sarah talk about this next one, creative outlets. I think the more you stay in your right hemisphere, which is your creative side of your brain, the more, well, you're not going to have as much anxiety. And when you paint or write or play music or listen to music, it can be so therapeutic
Mm-hmm.
and give you insight into your emotions and the ability to process them.
You know, I've got so much to say about this, but I
I
know we've
know.
also got a ton to talk about. But
Right.
yeah, any creative thing you do, like you wrote out the painting, writing, playing music, all of them. For me, when I sing, it can process a lot of emotions that I didn't know were there. That's the same with running or walking for me. Sometimes I'll be on a walk or run or singing and I'll be crying and I don't know why. I just
Yeah.
let it go unless I'm at choir rehearsal. Then I really try to be like, rein it in. But even me and my choir buddy that sit next to each other at rehearsal, I'll look at her all the time and I'm like, oh, I lost it during that one. And she'll
Right.
always just
And
start
that's
laughing.
okay.
Yeah.
And that's healthy. And if you're like me and you drank to suppress a lot of feelings, you're going to feel a lot in the beginning and throughout your life, because that's how that goes.
Right.
And music and painting and writing can be a really good way to fine tune the emotions that you are having. As an example, I'm going through a huge life change and I am stuck on Cowboy Carter by Beyonce. I cannot stop listening to it. And I know I'm slow to the game, but that's how it goes. And like every time I hear it, I hear a different lyric, or it touches my soul truly in a different way. And it helps me learn and think. I'm like,
Yeah.
ooh, ooh. So,
It's very
well,
cool when we can use other people's creative outlets to
yes.
find something in us. And we all know from an episode a few back that I'm obsessed with the band AJR.
Hmm. I
Guys,
listen to them, by the way.
I'm like on Reddit threads. Like I am like a teenage super fan. I'll tell my husband, did you know that my favorite AJR brother, Adam, is also a professor? He's like, oh my God, just stop, just chill out. And I'm like, I'm going to get posters for our bedroom.
Oh my gosh, you should. You're a total
But no,
fangirl.
I am. But I totally find something in all their songs. And it's the same way.
Hmm.
I'll hear things where I'm like, oh, I've never heard that lyric that way before. And then
Right.
sometimes some of their songs don't even hit for me. And I'm like, skip, go to the next one.
Yeah, for real. So, to further explore emotional sobriety, you need to connect with others. Drinking isolates you. Even if you drink with 100 people a day, you are self-isolated. So surround yourself with supportive, understanding people. If you don't have that and you need support, come on over to the Daymakers. Hang out with us.
I was going to say, we've got a place. And I
Yeah.
was just brainstorming some cool ideas for the day makers to really help everyone get in there and do this work
Mm-hmm.
because it is the coolest work. And the coolest thing is when you have a community like this, and obviously you can find these communities in different spots too, but you find a community of people who want to better themselves. And when you're with those people, you stay on the journey because you're like, okay, I see so and so doing it and they're having this come their way. And it's just a really cool process. And when you can work with people that are vulnerable and open and share, it's just the most amazing thing. So definitely check that out and check out one-on-one coaching with Heather too, because sometimes you really need in that one-on-one focus and
Yeah.
somebody to really say, these are the things that I want you to start working on. And it's just a cool thing. So check that out if you don't have a community.
I think that connecting with others on your alcohol free journey, it's not just talking about not drinking today, it is talking about this very topic.
Mm-hmm.
And I learn something every single time I'm in the thread or on a call. And it puts you in a space with, like Sara said, folks who want to learn. And when you start exploring your emotions, like setting boundaries definitely come up.
Oh, yeah.
And that is a learned practice that I say from lived experience. And we also have a whole nother episode about boundaries. So,
Yeah, I feel like boundaries come up in every topic that I prepare for this podcast or for the day makers. It's so funny. I did a whole call on people pleasing,
mm-hmm.
and basically it was setting boundaries. Like I
Yeah,
kept kind of laughing as I was writing things. I was like, so this is basically learning how to set boundaries with people.
right. And
And
yourself.
yeah, and yourself. And I think that that one is huge. And that's totally part of the emotional sobriety, the becoming more mindful of who you are, and just
Mm-hmm.
saying, oh, wait, I'm not going to stand for this anymore. This is not a part of my life. I'm going to change this
Right. And committing to not drinking for one day is setting a boundary with yourself. You're already doing it.
every single
By
day.
listening to this podcast, you're doing it.
Yeah, you're creating a boundary of what's going in your ears. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's super important.
Definitely. And then, of course, we have to think about practical tips for everyday life, right?
Yeah.
And Sara and I are like, this is our jam. This like lights us up. Daily practices, gratitude. Write down 3 things you're grateful for each day. This shifts your focus from negative emotions to positive aspects.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. It's a game changer, right? When you started the Daymakers, did you already practice daily gratitudes?
No,
Did you think I was crazy when I was like, write down
no,
3 things you're grateful for? Were you like, bitch? No.
no. I was not because I had done that like 10 years before on the bathroom floor after a hangover. I had done that one time. So at least I knew what it was. I mean, I
You're like,
knew
I've
what it
done it
was.
once.
I did it one time on the floor and I was so like in misery. I was like, I'm thankful I have a bathroom floor to throw up in on. And orange is the new black is on. Like it was pitiful. I've clearly expanded my gratitude
I
after.
was gonna say, can you think about now? Like I think about when I can feel myself going into a bad mood, and I'll be like,
Mhm.
start seeing things you're grateful for right now, and
Right,
that's when I have a little battle. I'm like, shut up, that's so stupid. I'm like, do it right now,
right.
and I start. I'm like, oh, okay.
Mhm. Now I am that person that is like, I'm grateful for the birds that are singing their bird song this morning. And if you would have asked me 4 years ago if I would have been on a podcast saying that out loud, I would have been like, you are nuts.
Oh my gosh, I love the birds. The birds were kind of quiet this morning in our little neck of the forest. I was like,
Hmm.
what's going on, birds? You guys taking a break?
Speaking of the birds, they were taking care of themselves.
They were.
So you have to like hone in your self care routine. And I don't mean going to get your nails done or a facial. I mean, that's great. Do that
Hmm.
because I do that. But, you know, sleep, eat foods that fuel your body, not just hangover food. And think about it like self care is like your mind, body, and spirit.
Oh, I like that. And
Yeah.
I think it's so funny because when we say self care, the picture I have in my head still is a bubble bath. when people say
Right.
self-care, even though I
Hmm.
know that it's not that. Like for me now, it is making a doctor's appointment. Yesterday, I went to
Right.
the dentist, and I thought to myself while the lady's working on my teeth, it was just a cleaning, but gosh, I was like, okay, first compare this to just getting a tattoo. That's kind of painful. And you think that's really fun. And then I thought, oh my gosh, look at you. You are taking care of yourself. You made this appointment. You're taking care of your teeth. This is self care. Like, that's what I want people to realize. It's not glamorous. It's going to bed on time. It's knowing that sometimes you need to sleep in a little bit more, like the birds did today.
Yeah. No, for real. And it's cool that you caught that at a dentist appointment.
I always catch it at because I'm always just so proud of myself for adulting and taking care of myself. But then I
Hmm.
think farther, like, no, I'm actually taking care of myself. This is self-care. And
Yeah.
I hate to admit it, but I hadn't had an appointment in 3 years because we moved and I got my
Right.
kids set up with a dentist first. I was like, they're the most important. And I was like, oh my gosh, you
Yeah.
got to go in. Stop, stop being I wasn't, it's not even that I was nervous about it. It was just kind of like, pick up the phone, make a phone call, set up the appointment.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. And when you think of taking care of your mind, body, and spirit, think about what you're ingesting on television, music, social media, who you're around. That's
Hmm.
self care too.
Yeah, that's huge. I love that you mentioned even TV and social media.
Yeah. And that'll help you delineate some of your emotions too. Just help you pay better attention and increase your self awareness.
Hmm.
So, drinking, now what? Or not drinking, now what? Right? Like, all this sounds great, but now we don't drink. So, now what the flip do we do? So, someone on a Daymaker's call that had recently joined asked us what the difference was between a craving and a trigger. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to explain that
Yeah.
because it does align in emotional sobriety, right?
Hmm.
Because, well, the primary difference is their dimensionality. So, triggers are associated with thoughts and memories.
Yeah.
Cravings are like physical, mental, and emotional. Well, that becomes a cluster, right? So I just wanted to clarify the difference because I had never truly, I guess I'd thought about it, but never that like clear.
Yeah.
So I want to say that again. The primary difference between cravings and triggers is dimensionality. Triggers are more associated with thoughts or memories. Cravings are more physical, mental, and emotional. So, what happens when you're working on emotional sobriety or boundaries or all that we said in the beginning? So, what do you do? Well, in the here and now, something that you can take away is use HALT. Are you
Yes.
hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or thirsty? We added another T.
Because we're so cool.
We are. And this helps, like if you're feeling anxiety or you're dreading a conversation or your kid just throwing herself on the floor and you're like wanting to have a reaction instead of a response,
Hmm.
grab a snack, take a deep breath. Obviously, you're not alone if your kid's on the floor, but like text another sober mama and be like, okay, help me.
Yeah.
And then take a sip of water and then sit down if they're safe.
Yeah.
I'm using this as a very recent example.
I was thinking so, mainly
That
because I know the age of Piper.
Yes, she's 4, a fresh 4. Or you can use something that we talked about in some episodes and we talk about a good bit in the day makers, which is stop. That's literally like stop, take a moment, observe, pause, and do the next right thing. And if that works, practice that again.
Yeah.
Kind of take your situation and pretend like you're driving a helicopter and look over it and ask yourself, will this matter in 6 months?
I like that so much because that's one of the things I'm always telling myself when I am really in it. I'm like, you're going to look back at this and you're going to feel like you overreacted.
I mean, I probably won't remember it, honestly.
Right? I know there are things where I'm like, you're not even going to remember this moment, but it is always, I always think of when I was pregnant, like, oh my gosh, I thought this is the worst thing in the world. I was pregnant with twins, everybody. Like my feet were exploding out of their shoes. I could barely walk towards the end. It was just a lot of weight right in my belly was being carried around. And I kept telling myself, people do this again. Like people choose to put themselves through this like multiple times. And I'm like, I'm not, right? But when I got farther past it, my kids are 3 and they're throwing fits on the floor like Piper was. They do stop doing that, just so you know.
Yeah,
They
they
throw
do.
their fits in different ways.
Oh boy.
But yeah, slamming doors and all those kind of
Mm-mm.
things. But now I look back at it and I go, it wasn't that bad. You're being such a baby. And I have to stop myself and go, no, it was bad. Okay. Don't
Yeah.
downplay it. But I say that to say when you're in it, it feels awful. And then you
Yeah.
look back at it later and it's almost like I did it and I made it
Mm-hmm.
through that so I can make it through other things.
Yeah. Yes. I have been telling myself this week I can do hard things.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't said that to myself in years. So just to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, like you kind of forget and then you're like, oh, I can do hard things. They're
Right?
just different hard things, right?
Yeah. And they're just coming at you in different ways. But yeah, you've survived up to this day. That's what I always tell myself. You're going to make it through because you've survived up to this day.
Right. So we covered a lot of emotional sobriety one-on-one. We talked about number one, what is it? Why it's important, how you start, how to maintain it, building a support network, some practical tips for everyday life, and my personal favorite, drinking, now what?
I love that. Drinking. Now what?
Hmm. Or I guess not drinking, now what? So I hope y'all enjoyed today's episode. Please follow, rate, leave us a review, share this with a friend, and check out the link in the show notes for the Daymakers community and one-on-one coaching.
I was going to do one more quick iteration on those ratings. It's just the way the algorithm works for us. So if you want to support this podcast, you want us to keep going, just go tap that rating button. It's usually a star in whatever app you listen to. Give us whatever rating you think is appropriate. And we do love it when you do a written post, but I know your time is precious. So hit that
Yeah,
star button because it really does actually do a lot for this podcast.
it sure does. All right. Until next week. Bye, y'all.